15th of April, 2015. And it can only mean one thing. There is less than a day to go before the ProTip campaign ends. In fact, in about 12 hours. So if you haven't already contributed, you must, it's mandatory. Go to the link in the description of this video, to the Indiegogo page, and pay us some money, lots and lots and lots of it. We're also accepting Bitcoin donations. So you can send in your tips here. You can pause this video right now and there's a QR code on the screen. If you just want to send us, I don't know, let's say 50 grand. Does that sound reasonable, Theo?
Yeah, sure. That sounds really reasonable. I mean, for 50 grand, you would get a lot of open source development, and the software can be used by anyone, anywhere in the entire world that, has internet and can, go to the GitHub and, do what they want with the code. So, I mean, that's a pretty good value if you think about it.
Say it's stonking value, Theo. Look at that, 50 grand, what the fuck pledge, still unclaimed. But I would love to actually, before we proceed, give a very, very special thank you to Anthony Goodman. Thank you, Anthony. You were absolute hero. You pledged $1,000 to us. You bought one of the premium perks. And so I'm really grateful for that. You get some back order Bitcoin magazines for that, which are like highly collectible. You can, you don't have to read them. We give you PDF copies as well. So you don't actually have to undo the wrapping. They still hold their value. You can just read the PDF copies. So, and you're going to get like, going to get to meet Leo and me. We'll probably take you out for a meal. It'll be like a whole big thing. Big kind of mandate, as they like to call it. So no, really so grateful to everyone that has pledged, and lots of people coming in at the last minute going, oh yeah, sorry, I forgot, I meant to do this ages ago. Is it too late? No, it's not too late. You've got 12 hours left. You can still pledge. So the current amount that we've raised is actually about $9,600, but we also had the coin auction, if you remember that, from about a week ago, where we raised 9.5 Bitcoins. Now, since then, the Bitcoin, with the money is still in escrow, and since then, the Bitcoin price has gone down considerably. So what I've done is I've sold my own personal Bitcoins, probably haven't got many left now, but I sold them at the previous price because we are obviously paying, all of our expenses are in fiat and they are immediate expenses. In fact, a lot of the crowd funds that we're raising are actually for the last 3 months in terms of back pay for Leo and I. Now, at the moment, I am couch surfing, so I'm saving a lot of money that way. I'm also eating Soylent, which is like this powdered food stuff, which is like, you can live on pretty much like a few dollars a day on food. So I'm saving lots of money there, but we're really making a lot of sacrifices to make this a reality. One of the goals that we had was $10,000. So I think it is safe to say, it is safe to announce right now that we have met our goal. But you should still get involved if you haven't already, and you should still tell all your friends about it as well, especially Theo, if they are aspiring artists, if they are finding it difficult to get paid and they're fed up with all these scammers and these promoters like telling them how they can make them famous and they're going to promote all their work. You don't need to anymore. It's got to be peer-to-peer. We don't take any of your funds. We don't take a cut. You install the app, it runs from your computer, all the Bitcoins are local. We're going to play around with some business models, like an opt-out subscription fee, like once a week, assuming that you use the app itself, but we will not get paid any more than the artists do. We want to be on the same kind of playing field.
Yeah, and also, I heard on Twitter that altcoins are back. So,
altcoins are back? What is
that? Altcoins, alternative cryptocurrency.
Yeah, I know all about it.
Yeah, they're back. And so now that they're back, you need to have some kind of utility. I mean, you can have cool names. I'm not going to say any names, but,
Newcoin? What was this thing about Newcoin?
No, I don't know about Newcoin. I'm just saying there are some new coins out there. And so if this is going to be open source and, if you help contribute, then it'll be made better and it can be continued to develop, and you can just fork it and have it for your altcoin. If it's a new one, altcoin of the week, altcoin of the month, altcoin with anonymous altcoin of the month or whatever, you could then fork this, and then people would be able to tip each other with that. There really is a coin called Newcoin.
Yeah.
You know what I found today? I found on Bittrex a coin called monetary unit. What a creative name, huh? Yeah, Newcoin. Yeah, why not? I mean, there's all kinds of coins out there, and so since it's an open source project, you can fork it and the money goes to the developers.
Yeah, but
And
the thing is that with all of these, I mean, look, the time is right, right? It's happening now. We can't wait for the banks to innovate because it's not in their interest to innovate. But look at this. I am encouraged by all of these projects. I really am. It's not about trying to control or like trying to capture the market or any of that thing. The whole financial industry is really just a rentier model. And that means that they're all just driving the price to zero. The problem isn't that they're driving the price to zero and undercutting each other. The problem is they're doing it as slow as they can so that they can make as much money in the meantime as possible. But what that means is that we all end up overpaying. And that's why you're seeing a flurry of these new projects. Did you see this, Theo, as well? It was announced by one of the Bitcoin core developers, Mike Hearn. He's also announced something today called Hourglass, which is very similar in terms of its design philosophy to ProTip, which is basically a special Bitcoin wallet that pays people per second. So for example, you could be on Skype to someone doing like some consultation or something like that. And then they pay you by the second. It will be a smart wallet that will somehow be aware of the context and aware of the apps that you're using. And it's going to be implementing micropayments. So it looks like he's reached his initial goal of designing Hourglass, which is going to be $2,500. And then the Hourglass prototype, he needs 25,000. What do you make?
well, I like that. I mean, I like the idea. I mean, I think that, I think you said that he is saying, okay, it is kind of a research project, because I'm not 100% convinced with this time based, but you could do some, you could offer some interesting services like that. And I mean, you could also make yourself seem cheap, but really you're expensive. Only, 0.01 per second, and that could add up really fast. But I mean, on the other hand, the negative part is like it's per second, so I might have an incentive to go slow. The positive thing that I can think of off the top of my head is that, yeah, it makes you really pay attention to time, and what are you using the time for? And I forgot the name of the film where time was the currency. It came out in the last 5 years, and that was a really interesting concept. So, in my opinion, it kind of plays into that whole thing where, I mean, in the movie it was more dystopian, okay, but it kind of goes in that similar theme where time is actually money. The people had it like on their wrist, this thing. And when it went to zero, then they would die, I think. So that was pretty hard. But it kind of has a similar idea. Hey, look, we're joined by Thomas Hunt. How's it going?
It's going good. The movie was In Time with Justin Timberlake. I just had to look that up. It's a terrible title. But yeah, Theo's right. It was much more dystopian. The poor were constantly running out of time and then dying, whereas the rich had hours and hours and hours of time. So it's actually a lot like our current reality, if you look at it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've heard of the film. People keep telling me to watch it because obviously I study time as a philosophical topic. I've always found it fascinating since I was a kid. One of the first things I did when I was old enough to understand things was I bought a stopwatch, and I would not stop going on with my parents about it. I had to have this stopwatch because I was obsessed with timing things. Like, how long did it take to walk down the road? How long did it take to turn the TV on? I had to keep timing and writing it down. I was obsessed with this thing called time. And it's never really left me. And I've been telling people for years that your time is your wealth, that, you have, all of this stuff, that time isn't linear, that the future comes from the past, that we weave a present moment from our memories brought to our future, desires and goals. But yeah, it always felt like I was kind of, I don't know, like a weird sort of a weird person for thinking all these strange thoughts. But now that we have this technology, I think it's finally, I can speak through the code, or I can speak through the tech. I can actually say, look, this is what I mean. Now, do you see what I mean? And then someone else can pick it up and go, yeah, I think I see what you mean. I get it now. And we were toying around with a lot of these ideas early on when we were designing ProTip, and we were thinking about charging pro rata this way, per second or per minute. And what we realized was that wasn't really going to work, partly because people could game it, so they could just slow down, like you say, but also because time is not necessarily measurable. Time is very subjective. A second for me is very different to a second for you. And the way we bring that together into the public discourse is with clocks, counting devices. and calendars too. In fact, time is one of the few things on this planet that the whole world agrees on. Even if your civilization, your culture uses a different calendar, it will be interoperable with the calendar that we use in the West. So it really is this very bizarre thing conceptually. And what we realized was that actually a lot of this technology was already being used. It was being used by advertisers, right? Because advertisers take your attention and then they market it, and they create internal private markets where they can sell your attention onto other people. So it's all about adverting you, changing your direction. Did you know, or had you thought about buying this product? And they'll often look for pinch points, the same way that people that collect for charity on streets, they'll try to find like hallways or stairways where you have to go through that exit, and they'll stand at near the exit because that's kind of the fountainhead, you know. And so advertisers play all these kind of mind games, and they've got lots of research groups, so they can often make predictions about you. And we thought, well, why don't we take this same underlying technology of farming people's time, but give them the tools to make them smarter about who they are? So we can tell you, this is how you've spent your time this week, and how would you like to distribute some funds that you're comfortable sharing with people? So yeah, I think it's fantastic that people are taking this idea and they're running with it and they're trying different things. That's what this is all about.
It's funny you mentioned that, Chris, with your stopwatch. I had the similar thing when I first got my little digital watch with a timer on it. I would time how long it took me to cross the schoolyard, and I would time this, and I would time that. And eventually I had to stop because I realized I was going to go insane. I was like, I'm just timing things and, you know, scanning them against yesterday's time. Oh, 3 minutes today, 3.5 yesterday. I was like, this is not benefiting, but it is fascinating to try to track it, try to understand where it's going. I was just thinking about the other day, if people had a real track of where they're spending their time and how much they have left, really, I think that people would bow out of a lot more boring conversations and really judge the people they surround themselves. Because if you surround yourself with someone that's just like time sinking you and taking your time and not really benefiting you, doesn't have a good attitude, isn't funny, you know, whatever, that's your time and you're wasting it with that person. And people think they have lots of it, but somehow if they were able to quantify, oh, how much of my life am I spending talking to this boring person, they might change their habits. They might be more focused. I used to be incredibly focused on reading. I just wanted to spend all my time reading, and that's pretty much what I did. So it's interesting to see people get back into these time ideas.
Yeah, I had one of those little Casio watches, you know, one of those. I think they're like back in style now, kind of. And well, I mean, it's kind of funny. I used to just see how if I could get it to like a 10th or 100th of a second by pressing it. You're like, do 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 do. Oh, look, I got 11. We used to have contests with my friends. I got 25. You know, and you know, and it was really cool. The alarms, the like beep, you know, setting different alarms, and then in the U.S. we call it military time. You know, I set the 24-hour clock by accident once, and I was like, Mom, what's this? It's 20. What time is it? This is crazy. You know, it's like, oh, that's military time. You have to, but yeah, but it was really a cool thing to play with, and you do realize a lot of things. So that's why I like this second, you know, charging by the second idea, and let's see what happens. I think it's a good experiment, and that's what we need. We need experiments and people taking chances, and not people playing it safe and doing just like becoming a middleman, or how can I replicate what we already have and just use Bitcoin instead? As we don't really need a lot of that. What we need is people taking chances and risks, and yeah, innovating and seeing what happens. Right?
That's exactly right. And it's also about, you know, sacrifice. It's like we said, we can't wait for the banks to innovate because they're not interested in innovating. They're interested in paying lip service, and they're interested in talking about it, but they're not interested in actually doing it. And this is one of the things that, you know, I really wanted to try and get done with this project, was to try and show that there is another way. You can do things honestly. You can make commitments that are manageable, that you can. And it's not like we're not going to make mistakes. Of course we will. We're only human. But it will be, you know, an honest attempt at delivering something of tangible value that people can actually pick up and use, and then feed back into, and actually we can learn from this. Because one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was this kind of introspective nature that Bitcoiners have, that we're quite a closed group. When you look up Bitcoin on Twitter, like people have like Bitcoin in their names. Well, you two do, for example, have Bitcoin in your Twitter names. And from an outsider's perspective, it looked like, well, why would you put the name of a currency in your handle? Well, probably because you want to attract other people that are into the Bitcoin space. So Bitcoin becomes like above the line advertising, you know, you're putting it out in the public. And I think a lot of people, the only time they ever have to think about currency is when they go on holiday, and they don't even like it because their experience is normally crappy. They get confused by it. They've got to work it out in the restaurant. They're used to paying fees. When they go abroad, they know that they're going to be charged something for the bank card, but they just want to buy this thing right now. So they just go, well, all right, I'll just write it off in my head. I'm probably going to get screwed on the exchange rate. And so when you talk about Bitcoin, I think people kind of get scared, and I was saying this to Tatiana the other day on her show, is that the way it comes across to outsiders that we're all like, you know, down with the Fed, and it's all really political and sometimes libertarian, but actually it doesn't have to be. You know, this can be just about people rewarding one another for their work. It doesn't have to be like this big political thing, no?
Are you against politics now, or what?
Well, everything you do is political, but politics isn't the right tool, is it, right now? Like when we're talking about Bitcoin, if we go from the assumption that people need to learn about Bitcoin just because it's a very, very important piece of technology that's going to change the way we transact with each other in the future, then even if we can agree that it's education-based, couching it in terms of ending the Fed and quantitative easing, this isn't the best way to engage people.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was just being kind of the devil's advocate a little bit, but yeah, I agree, and I think that you know, just let people figure it out what's relevant for them. You know what I mean? And as far as Bitcoin, I mean, that's how I wouldn't, you know, if someone isn't already interested in those topics, I'm not gonna bombard them with that and Bitcoin at the same time. I mean, that's just ridiculous. You know, instead, yeah, like you said, education. So a guy that plays music, it's really easy to explain them about a lot what we're talking about, you know, doing business directly, you know, cutting out a lot of middlemen. And someone that's into economics, you can talk to them about the economic theory of Bitcoin. It's limited and miners and things like that. And for everyone, it has a different relevance, and it doesn't have to be a specific political agenda, I think. Actually, I'm pretty surprised of a lot of the different viewpoints. I've met people, you know, I have met a lot of people that aren't libertarian. I've met a lot of people that are libertarian or anarchist. I met a lot of different people, and they're all interested in Bitcoin. So that's where we all agree, or we're all interested in that. And I guess people have Bitcoin in their names because they're complete Bitcoin fanatics.
Like you two.
Right, yeah.
I do think it is important for people to learn about the politics behind money, and that there has been a major change. And, you know, the 1930s weren't that long ago, really, if you look at it. And we have lost a lot of value in the dollar since then, if you're keeping track. The dollar has lost an incredible amount of value, and it does affect people. It does affect their ability to save. And although Bitcoin hasn't turned out to be the savings currency we thought it would be yet, it's not exactly deflationary right now with the price problems. I think people should look into it. They should know the difference between inflationary and deflationary currencies, and they should know how fractional reserve banking works. And then they can make their own decision after they find out how it works. But we've all just taken money for granted. We've assumed that it's a solid medium of exchange that we could use. Like, it used to be gold backed, it used to be silver backed, it used to have some value. I think we need to look into that again. We need to look at that a second time. So it's not that political. It's an education issue, I think.
But I don't know that we have to. I mean, so much of the discourse and so much of it, like for me, it's about the sequence and the order in which people learn about it. A lot of people just don't want to have to think about this stuff. They're apathetic, and they need to.
And then we should plug all those people right back into the matrix.
No, I think it's a sequence issue. I think you want to learn about this when you've got someone you can trust that can teach you about it. And so we have to focus on the right people in the right order. And I think the order in which we've now reached the chasm. In fact, it's funny I should say that. That there is the crossing the chasm chart that's been scrawled on the wall by one of these startups. And let me just pull up the link for everyone. So crossing the chasm.
I'm actually reading that book right now. About
Oh, really? Yeah, it's
we try
Jeffrey
to pick up
Moore.
all this startup knowledge.
Yeah,
Everyone has the lean startup. I'm not sure that they
yeah,
read it, but I read that last week, and
yeah.
yeah, I'm reading Crossing the Chasm now. It's excellent if you're into startup information.
Yeah, so this is like a must read if you're into, you know, virality and like scale and shit. So this was a famous book, I think in the 60s, and it's basically outlines the order in which people adopt new technologies. And so you have the early sort of inventors, he's calling them enthusiasts here, but actually it's usually the inventors, and then you have the early adopters, then you get this big chasm, sometimes called the dip. So there's a big gap, and then all the pragmatists, like your members of the public that are, you know, have other concerns in life, they're not necessarily interested in this. They'll pick it up eventually once they buy into the visionary stream, and then eventually you get the conservatives and then the laggards or the skeptics, right?
It was a really fascinating description, the way he described what the technology visionaries are into and what the pragmatists are into, and how the two groups don't really work together. And that's why we have this crossover there. That the pragmatists, they don't want to be first. They want to be reasonable. Whereas the visionaries, all they care about is being first. So they're not good groups to work together. Yet that's the way the system goes every time. Visionaries to pragmatists.
Yeah,
I like that. I really like that. That's interesting. Yeah, I agree with that, Chris. I mean, that's my personal subjective experience so far. Is sometimes I see people and they're like, "Are you still doing Bitcoin?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure." It's like, "I think I need a wallet, or is that what it's called?" And I'm like, "Yeah, sure, of course." Because they're like, "Wow, this is still around, you know, and you're still into it, and I know you." So I guess I know Theo for a long time. I can trust him. I mean, in 2013, I told him it was a Ponzi and it was crazy, but you know, and Theo insisted that it was cool, and I didn't agree with him. And then all this other stuff happened. And really, I'm not joking. That's really an example. And they're like, "Well, can you like?" I was like, or someone else. "Hey, didn't you send me Bitcoin a while ago?" "Yeah, I did, but I don't have your password. I hope you still have it because I don't have, you know." But I sent them like 0.01 or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, I still have it. That's really cool." So they want to learn more about it now, you know, after some time. You know,
See now,
they're more.
it sounds like your friends are pragmatists and you're a technological visionary. So we're seeing that combination that we're exactly talking about here.
Exactly, and they're like you guys were saying. They're just kind of like, fine. I would tell them about Bitcoin. They'd be like, "Oh, that's finance. I'm not a banker. That's banker stuff. You know, money. I don't want to deal with that money stuff. You know." I was like, "Well, it's kind of important to know what's going on." They're like, "Yeah, that's the bankers. I don't. You're talking like a banker now."
well, this is what my friend Marie Christine would call a constitutional moment, and you know, she's into law and regulation, is really smart, and she was telling me yesterday that this is a constitutional moment. That every now and again you have these sort of periods of history where we have to really decide what we're going to do for the next, you know, 100 years or something like that. And you know, you have examples like the Magna Carta, you have the American Declaration of Independence, and really it's about the break from the past. It's a negation, it's a rejection, a prosecution of the past, and the beginning of something new, a renaissance, if you like, a rebirth. And that's what we're going through right now. The problem is that we can't have people that are, you know, all these people being apathetic. Bitcoin needs everyone. It needs everyone to have some level of understanding, because whatever goes into this code in the next year or two, that's what we're going to be stuck with. That's going to set precedent. And all these important people, the kind that made HTTP and TCP/IP and UDP the common standard, like probably the most popular constitution. If you think of these protocols like constitutions, that is probably the most, TCP/IP is probably the most widely adopted constitution in human history, right? It has penetrated over 3 billion different people across the world, use it all the time without even understanding the nuts and bolts. Now, in the old days, when you had old technology like cups like this or chairs, well, you could see the technology, it was there in front of you, but now the technology is made out of language, it's made out of words with the code. And this technorati priesthood, this kind of priestly kind of, you know, developer class is completely running away with all these kind of decisions. And I think a lot of that's unwarranted.
I agree, Chris, and I think we should just take a minute here to check in with ProTip. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up on my screen here. ProTip has raised more than $6,635 on Indiegogo, and there's only 11 hours left in our Indiegogo fundraiser. So if you want to donate by PayPal or credit card, now's the time. Just go to Indiegogo and search for ProTip. We also have Bitcoin donations. We're up to around 13 Bitcoins. That's still just under $3,000 at today's lower evaluation. And of course, if you want to donate with Bitcoin, you can donate right now with the QR code on my screen. Just go ahead and pause the video, donate a couple bits.
Right, and while you're looking at that QR code, Chris, can you tell us what some of the cool prizes and incentives are left? I think there's like some physical Bitcoins.
No, we're all
What's
out.
left?
Oh no,
we're all out.
No,
we're
we
sold
do.
out?
No, correct myself. We do have some of the silver wallets left, which actually I have one in my bag. I'll pull it out in just a moment. But yeah, you can go to the updates page. So click on the IGG link in the description below, and if you scroll down here, we'll show you like all the perks. So these are optional. These were additional perks that David Bailey, this guy here, has been sending out the perks early. He's just been sending out. Now fiat's not included. Not part of the perking, but you do get these wonderful money clips. So if you want to hold on to your fiat or what's left of it, with the nice Bitcoin logo. But yeah, these big rare physical Bitcoins, we gave away 3. We didn't give them away, we auctioned them away. So we got rid of 3 of those, and we still have the silver Bitcoin wallets actually. Let me just see if I can. Bear with me. Let me see if I can pull up a link to those silver.
Well, I've got to go, but I only had just a couple minutes to spend time with you guys. But be sure to check out ProTip.
Yeah, cheers.
And check out Mad Bitcoins. I did a new episode recently, so my first on the road episode. So see you guys later.
Sweet.
Bye-bye.
Thanks a lot, man. Take
Later.
it easy. Yeah, so these are the silver Bitcoin wallets, and we still have a whole bunch of those. I mean, actually, they're not going to run out of supply because the company still makes them, so we can sell as many of those as we like.
Right.
So yeah, silver Bitcoin wallets, they don't come with Bitcoins preloaded. You load it yourself. So you get given an ounce of silver, and you get like a special hologram, and then you can print out your own private key. So the benefit to that is you don't have to trust someone else. With the rare Casacious Bitcoins, they were made by a chap called Mike Caldwell, who has an outstanding reputation in the Bitcoin community. But yes, you do have to trust that Mike isn't going to, at some point in the future, sweep the Bitcoin private keys and take away your Bitcoins. I'd also like to say a big thank you to Bittylicious, who have sponsored us to the tune of more than $300 really, because Mark was very kind and gave us a very good exchange rate on the Bitcoins that we've been raising up until now. So thank you. They're a great, very convenient way of buying Bitcoins in the UK and other countries around the world. It's just like one click. You just put your Bitcoin address in, then your email, get some coins, and away you go. You can even buy with credit and debit cards. How about that? Also, a massive thanks to the guys at ShopRocket who've sponsored us for, I've lost count. They've been sponsoring us. They've been matching orders. Each one of the guys was like sending us, donations with their credit cards over there. So thanks a lot to Chris and the team at ShopRocket for matching a lot of your pledges that you were giving in. So he was like, oh, another donation's come in, fine, I'll do one. And then another one came in, he's like, yeah, I'll match that one. Up to the tune of about $500, but plenty more where that came from. So it's been really cool getting all this support from people like Anthony and Chris and Mark and everyone. It's been fantastic, and that's going to give us the freedom that we need, that Leo and I now, so like focus on the next 2 weeks, getting this early beta out for the 1st of May. And it's just going to go out to the early adopters initially, because we don't want anyone losing their Bitcoins, and we'll be able to do, we're going to get you to do some testing. We're going to send out some Bitcoins that you can go off and run with tests. We need you to send back bug reports and things like that. And yeah, just really get involved in the development process. We're going to have a GitHub up and running. People will be able to contribute feedback. Anyone that wants to get involved in the community, if you think this is right for a friend of yours who has been struggling to make money from their work before, you can actually now go to them with an honest product offering. It's not no scammy. No one's going to take a cut off of your work. It just gives you the tools to promote what you want to be promoted for. We've got a lot of other ideas too that we haven't spoken about publicly yet, just because we want to get things done one at a time. We don't want to overpromise. We don't want to like sell a whole big dream and then sort of, you know, get everyone's hopes up. So we're just going to focus on these things. We have a lot of other good ideas. And then once we get the community running, we can start to share those.
Right. So we have, you kind of covered it a little bit. What we do have a basic question from one of the guys, Mr. Hodel,
Right.
Mr. Hodel in Whale Club TeamSpeak. So what happens after today? If no more money comes in, they won't continue to develop. So just for people that have not followed from the beginning, just go over, you know, the whole idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So we tiered the goals because we had no idea going into this campaign what to expect. We'd looked at lots of other open source projects and lots of other Bitcoin related fundraisers. And so we priced it as honestly as we could. We didn't want to, you know, devalue the project too much and then not be able to deliver later on. So we scaled it. We said for $10,000, we will release the code on the 1st of May, open source, whatever state it's in, it's just going to go out there, at least to the early adopters anyway. So anyone pledging $25 or more would get early access to the beta on the 1st of May. Bearing in mind, there's already been a working alpha since February, and there have been about 20 alpha testers using the demo version, okay? But then you see for $25,000, if you want more than just a tipping app, because that's all it's going to do initially, it's just going to do some tipping and you can subscribe to people. That's all well and good. But we want to help people go from freemium to premium, right? So if already you're producing work and you're doing stuff online and you have a lot of freemium users, maybe you want to scale up and you want to start doing premium. So we also had a vision for doing a messaging system so that instead of getting people to sign in with our emails, which people aren't always keen to do because they're afraid they're going to get put on a spam list, so they create these kind of spam trap accounts, we'll let you send messages over the Bitcoin blockchain or possibly the testnet blockchain so we don't spam it. And then that way, you can identify your customers, not by their email address, but by their Bitcoin address. You see, there's no sign-in required. You just go to a website, you identify the person through the Bitcoin address, and then you can actually talk to them over the blockchain itself. Then, of course, later on, if you want to get their email, of course, you can just ask them for the email. But the nice thing is that you already know that they like your work because they paid you already, right? The app only lets you talk to each other if you've already tipped one another. Otherwise, you know, you wouldn't know each other existed. So that we thought was a nice idea, and we got a lot of really positive feedback from that. And another idea that we wanted to implement was we're calling them content passes, or basically self-hosted paywalls. So if you've got a WordPress site and you want to have a little paywall on there, you want to show a little bit of an article and you know people can pay to see the rest. It gives you a little bit of code. We're not sure what we're going to use that, maybe PHP or JavaScript. You just type in the address in the app. You say generate the embed code. You put it onto your website, and then it puts a nice little sort of graphic on the page that tells the user when they get to your website. Most of the content on this site is free, but this is premium. If you'd like to pay like 25 cents, it'll give you one-time access. If you want to pay $4, it gives you, you know, permanent access, something like that. But the benefit is you can just do this on your own website. It doesn't need to come through us. So it's a little bit of PHP, and you just put it into your WordPress blog. We'll probably raise some more money later on in the year if people are willing, and we'll make a little plug-in for them. And the whole point of this is that it just gives people the tools. So we've already raised officially 9,600. Then we're waiting for this extra money to come in from the auction. That will take us above 10,000. So on the 1st of May, we'll release it open source. We've also said and pledged that we will be long-term contributors to the project. But if we don't raise enough money for us to be able to survive and pay the bills, that probably Leo and I will have to get other jobs, and as a result, the development might slow down. It shouldn't matter too much because if the idea is great, because it will be probably going to release it under a GNU 2.0 license, because we like the philosophy of Storm and so on. So we want to make this open source. If other developers come along, have more capabilities than us, there'll be a GitHub repo that they can just fork and they can take it away. Anyone with any marketing experience that has a vision for how to make this go viral without it being spammy, please. If we could achieve that, that would be great. We want your ideas. And really, don't wait for permission. Just get involved. So that's the answer to that question. I think it's, you know, a pretty robust and honest roadmap.
Yeah, that sounds great. I think that clears it up pretty much. So, okay, well, I think I don't know about you. I think that about wraps it up. I don't have any other topics. And don't forget to go to protip.is and check it out. I think that the next show we're going to do is, well, transmission is every Sunday at 2100 German time, so Central European. And the next show on World Crypto Network is, I think there's Bitcoin Rush, there's This Week in Cryptos, and there's a lot of other shows. So check it out, subscribe, and give us a thumbs up so we get really good SEO inside of YouTube. Anything else, Chris?
Yeah, just to say thank you to everyone for your support. Please keep pledging. You've got 12 more hours, which will be 11 more hours, sorry, which will be about 9 a.m. UK time tomorrow morning. So I don't know that we're going to get another video in. I've been super stacked and very busy. And at the moment, my living conditions are very fluid. So I don't always have access to internet. You see, I have to kind of decant all of my stuff, in various places and try and negotiate. And the evenings probably usually work best for me here in the UK. Yes, so thank you very much to everyone. Just to quickly address your question, Eric, because you've come in at the last minute, can we apply ProTip to live events? Of course, we have thought about that. And we are thinking of doing something with buskers. So watch this space. We are talking to a company right now, and I'd love to make the tipping into a live experience if we can. So thank you again to everybody. Check all the links in the description below, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.